All right, so we're diving into trade shows today. Specifically, how to rock it at Fira Barcelona.
Yeah, this guide we've got, it's backed with tips. But we're going deeper than just the how-to stuff.
Right, because Fira Barcelona, it's not just any venue. It's got history, these amazing venues, and well, trade shows themselves have evolved, haven't they?
Totally. And what's fascinating about Fira, it's been a major player since, get this, 1932. Almost a century of hosting these huge international events.
Wow, so it's got some serious experience under its belt. But tell me about the venues themselves, Montjuic and Gran Via. Is it just about, how much space they have?
Space is important, sure. Montjuic is massive, 111,000 square meters, and Gran Via even bigger, 240,000. But it's more than just square footage.
Okay, so what else makes them special?
Well, Montjuic, it was built back in 1929 for the International Exposition, so it's got history. This urban fairground design with 7 pavilions.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
Now imagine this. Modern exhibition spaces set against the backdrop of the Palau National...
Wow, that's a cool mix of old and new. But what about Gran Via? It's the more modern one, right?
Right. Gran Via's is all about sustainable design. The architect, Toyo Ito, designed it with 8 interconnected pavilions. And get this, the roof, it's wave-like, and it's got...
Okay, I'm intrigued.
one of the largest solar panel fields in the world, right on the roof.
Wow, so they really walking the walk on sustainability. Not just saying it, actually doing it. Okay, so let's say I'm sold on Fira Barcelona. I want to exhibit there. Where do I even begin? It seems overwhelming.
You need a plan, like a blueprint for success.
Okay, so just figuring out what my booth will be about.
It's more than that. It's about crafting a narrative, something that draws people in. Let's say your theme is technology innovations of the past century.
Okay, I like it.
That theme influences everything, what you show, the flow, even how you use visuals and audio to really immerse people.
So you're not just showing gadgets, you're telling a story.
Yeah.
About how technology shaped us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But even the best story falls apart without logistics. Deliveries, setup, utilities, all that needs to be solid.
Right, because no matter how cool the idea is...
If you can't execute it, it's a no-go.
Makes sense.
And, of course, budget, you got to manage that.
Oh, yeah. Can't forget about the money.
Setting clear financial goals early on, that helps. Stay on track, measure your return on investment and all that.
Prevents you from going overboard.
Right, exactly. Then there's your team. They're the face of your brand.
The ones who'll be interacting with everyone at the show.
Right, and good training for them makes a huge difference. They need to be confident, knowledgeable, and ready to engage.
They're the ones bringing that story to life. Okay, so I've got my concept, logistics are handled, my team's prepped. Now what? Designing the booth itself. That's got to be fun.
That's where your vision becomes reality. Staging, production, everything needs to be top-notch.
Yeah.
And aligned with your theme to make a real impact.
Right, so it all connects back to that initial concept.
Think about how lighting and layout can guide people through your space.
Like you're directing their experience.
Exactly, you're controlling the flow.
But even with the coolest booth, you need people to see it, right? What about marketing?
Absolutely. You need pre-show buzz, website, social media, the works. But here's the thing. Fira Barcelona has these regulations. Regulations of participation. Exhibitors have to follow them.
Oh, so it's not just show up and you're good to go.
Not quite. There's paperwork, guidelines,
So I need to be aware of those.
For example, you need to know your allocated space inside and out.
Okay, makes sense.
Including, and this is important, where the fire safety equipment is.
Right, safety first.
And usually, stand construction is the exhibitor's responsibility. But your design, it has to incorporate safety features.
Like what kind of features?
Barriers to prevent falls, things like that.
Okay, so on top of the usual trade show stuff, Fire has its own rule.
And here's a curveball. If your stand is elevated,
elevated,
like more than half a meter off the ground, you might need a construction certificate from a certified technician.
Wow, I wouldn't have thought of that. Anything else about these regulations?
Yeah, they impact marketing too. Think about setup and dismantling. Fire has strict time frames for those.
Oh, so I can't just bring in a huge truck whenever I want.
Well, they can restrict vehicle access based on what you're transporting.
So I need to plan that out carefully.
And packing materials, you have 24 hours to remove them after the event.
Otherwise...
Extra costs, so don't forget about that.
Okay, noted. Fire has some specific rules to keep in mind. What about insurance? Do I need that?
Absolutely. It's mandatory. You need public liability insurance and property damage insurance through Fira's policy.
So that covers me if anything happens during the event.
Protects you and any third parties.
Okay, makes sense. Now, what about the stuff I'm actually showing? The merchandise?
Anything you deliver to Fira needs clear identification. And you have to be there personally to receive it.
They won't just take it from anyone.
Nope, they're not responsible for undocumented or unreceived items.
Okay, good to know.
And here's a big one. No on-site storage for unsold goods.
Oh, so I need to have a plan for that.
You got a plan for relocation, no last-minute scrambling.
All right, so we've covered concept logistics, FIRA regulations, but how do I make my exhibition stand out? Attract the right people, you know?
Let's talk design, and I mean real design, not just throwing up some displays.
Okay, I'm all ears.
Remember that concept we talked about. It's crucial here. It's about creating an experience, not just an exhibit.
So take visitors on a journey through my booth.
Exactly, and every square meter counts. Your layout needs to guide people, encourage exploration.
But not make them feel lost, right?
Right, maintain a cohesive flow. It all needs to connect.
Yeah, especially in those huge venues, easy to get overwhelmed.
And booth design itself is key. It's not just what you display, it's how you display it.
Okay, so presentation matters.
Think about it. A carefully chosen selection of items should convey a specific message, aligning with your theme.
So each item tells part of the story. What about things like color, lighting, even the fonts I use?
Those are visual elements, but they're not just decoration. They guide the eye, they enhance understanding.
So they're part of the storytelling, too.
You might use bold design to highlight key areas. Or a minimalist aesthetic might suit a different exhibit.
Creating a visual hierarchy so people know where to focus. What about sound? Is that something to consider?
Absolutely. Sound adds another layer of immersion.
Like a guided audio tour or some background music to set the mood.
Exactly. It enriches the experience.
And then there's interaction, right? People remember what they do.
You got to get those visitors involved. Think interactive displays, hands-on activities.
Make it fun, make it memorable.
Even something like a digital sandbox, you know?
Like you see in museums, yeah.
That can make things more engaging.
All this sounds great, but all this high-tech, immersive stuff, does it have to be expensive? Can you do this on a budget?
That's a valid concern. You don't need to go crazy with spending. Sometimes, simple solutions are the most effective.
Okay, so how do you do that?
Think about using space cleverly. Creative lighting, even just good old-fashioned storytelling through your displays.
So be resourceful. Think outside the box.
And at the end of the day, it's about human connection.
Makes sense. So we've got concept, design, even budget tips. But what about the actual running of the exhibition? What are the must-knows for operating at Fira Barcelona?
Let's start with something many people overlook. FIRA's specific regulations.
We touched on those earlier.
These are in the regulations of participation, which are actually part of your contract as an exhibitor.
Okay, so I need to read those carefully.
And they go beyond the usual trade show stuff.
Like what? Give me an example.
Waste disposal, FIRA is very particular about.
Oh, so I can't just throw everything in the same bin.
Nope. Different categories for waste. Gotta sort it.
I never would have thought of that.
If you don't, you could get fined.
Wow, okay.
It's about being environmentally conscious, which FIRA takes seriously. And language. Well, many people in Barcelona speak English. You'll be interacting with a mostly Spanish-speaking audience.
So having some Spanish speakers on my team would be helpful.
Definitely. Or at least have translated materials ready.
Makes sense.
Another thing unique to FIA is their focus on accessibility.
Accessibility for people with disabilities.
Exactly. They've got strict guidelines to ensure exhibits are accessible.
That's great to hear, creating an inclusive environment.
They are. And finally, understand the culture of Barcelona.
It's more than just the trade show, right?
Right. It's a vibrant city, but also with strong traditions.
So be respectful of local customs.
Exactly. Be respectful and people will be welcoming.
So it's not just about the booth, it's about understanding the place and the people.
You got it.
All right, so we've got a lot to think about, but now let's talk marketing. Getting people to actually see my exhibit.
Let's do it. How to attract people and make a lasting impression. You're right. At a trade show, you're competing for attention. And it's not just about having the flashiest booth. You got to think about the visitor's experience, you know?
Yeah, what would make me stop at a busy show? Honestly, sometimes it's the simple things. A friendly face, someone who asks the right questions. But then again, I do love a good interactive display.
You're hitting on something important there. It's a balance. Human connection is key. But technology used strategically can really enhance that. Think about what makes Fira Barcelona different. Those incredible venues, the architecture.
Yeah, like Montjuic with the Palau Nacional in the background. Could you play off that historical vibe somehow?
Absolutely. Let's say your company has a long history, maybe even some connection to Barcelona. Instead of just a digital presentation, create a mini museum.
Oh, well done.
Right in your booth, showcasing historical artifacts and weaving them into your company's story.
So you're using the venue itself as part of the story.
Exactly. And it gives people something to talk about. People love a good story, especially one connected to the place.
Makes sense, but what about the tech lovers? Fire is all about cutting-edge technology.
Right. How can exhibitors tap into that?
Well, we mentioned augmented reality, virtual reality.
Give me an example. How could that work at Fira? Imagine you're showcasing sustainable building materials. Instead of just samples and brochures, you offer an AR experience.
Okay, I'm listening.
Visitors can build a virtual structure right there in your booth. See how different materials impact energy efficiency, the design,
That's pretty cool, interactive, educational.
and memorable. It caters to different learning styles. Some people are visual, some like to read. This gives them a hands-on.
Right, it's not just one size fits all.
But high-tech isn't always the answer. Sometimes it's about using simple tech in creative ways.
Like what? Give me an example.
Let's say you're a software company. Instead of static demo, you create a digital graffiti wall.
A digital graffiti wall, okay.
Visitors can tag it with their thoughts on the future of technology.
So it's interactive, gets people involved.
Generates buzz, and you can even use the data collected to inform your future product development.
Oh, so you're getting insights from it too.
Data-driven engagement, and Fire is perfect for this. They have great Wi-Fi, and many exhibitors use beacons. Yeah, to push targeted content to visitors' phones as they walk by.
That sounds a bit Big Brother-y, doesn't it?
It can be. You got to be transparent about data collection. Use it to enhance the experience, not bombard people with ads.
So give them something valuable, not just a sales pitch.
Exactly, like a beacon could notify them about a relevant presentation. Or offer a discount on something they showed interest in earlier.
Okay, that makes more sense. Adding value.
And let's not forget the basics, giveaways, demos,
People love free stuff.
but make it relevant to your brand. And Fira's sustainability focus.
So no more cheap plastic trinkets. Got it.
How about a reusable water bottle with your logo on it? And a message about sustainability.
Now that's something I'd keep.
Practical, promote your brand, aligns with Fira's values.
We've talked about attracting visitors, but how do you turn that into leads?
The big question, lead capture and qualification. And technology can be a game changer here, especially at a large show.
Because trying to gather business cards in a crowd.
It's a nightmare. Go digital.
Okay, what do you suggest?
Interactive quizzes that gather info while engaging people. QR codes on displays, linking to downloads or offers, but they need an email address to access it.
So you're getting valuable data, but also giving them something.
And it's all trackable. You know, who engaged with what, who downloaded what, allows for targeted follow-up.
Which is key for turning leads into customers.
Exactly. You're building a database of qualified leads, not just a pile of business cards.
And that data helps you plan what to do after the show.
Speaking of which, let's talk about post-Fira strategy.
Because the work doesn't end when the event does, right?
Absolutely not. You've invested time, money, energy. Now you need to maximize your return on that investment.
Just how do we do that?
It starts with a post-event analysis.
Take a step back, see what worked, what didn't.
More than that, we're talking data crunching. How many leads, engagement rates, social media performance?
You need to have ways to measure all that beforehand.
Absolutely. Fire offers some data analytics tools, but you should have your own tracking systems too.
So I can really see what's working.
But data's just numbers. What about qualitative feedback?
Right, the human side of things.
Talk to your team. What questions did visitors ask? What were the hot topics? What feedback did you get?
So you're getting insights beyond just the numbers.
And don't forget those leads you captured. A CRM system is crucial here. Categorize your leads. Based on their interest level, tailor your follow-up.
So someone who spent an hour at my booth gets more attention.
Exactly. Personalize it, a thank you email, offer resources, maybe invite them to a webinar.
Keep the conversation going.
Show them you're not just after a sale. You want to provide value.
This is great stuff, but I'm starting to feel a bit overwhelmed. So much to think about. Any advice for first-timers at Fira?
It's a lot, but it's rewarding. Break down into steps. Concept, logistics, marketing, one thing at a time. And you don't have to do it all yourself.
We talked about companies like Atom Expo Stand for booth design.
Right, and there are consultants for marketing, logistics. Don't be afraid to ask for help.
So delegate, use the resources available.
And Fira itself has resources, workshops, seminars on booth design, lead generation, all sorts of things.
They're really invested in helping exhibitors succeed.
They understand that successful exhibitors mean a successful show.
Okay, that's good to know. So we've covered a lot. Concept, design, marketing, the whole shebang. But I feel like we've only scratched the surface of Fira Barcelona. What else should exhibitors know about this unique venue?
Let's explore what really makes Fira stand out, beyond the obvious.
Okay, so beyond the impressive buildings and the sustainability, what makes Fira Barcelona truly stand out?
It's the whole ecosystem. Fira isn't just a place to rent space. It's a hub, for innovation, for collaboration.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
They have programs, they connect exhibitors with investors, researchers, even potential business partners.
So you could go to Fira looking for customers and end up with a whole new business deal.
It happens. They've got this dedicated space, the innovation zone, specifically for these kinds of connections. Plus, they organize matchmaking events based on industry.
Wow, so it's networking on steroids, not just handing out business cards, but actually finding the right people.
Right, connecting with businesses that have shared interests.
That's pretty cool. What about the events themselves? Any that are unique to Fira?
Absolutely. They host some of the most cutting-edge trade shows. Take the Mobile World Congress, for example.
I've heard of that one. It's huge.
It's the biggest mobile tech event globally, and it's only at Fira.
So if you're in that industry, you got to be there.
Exactly. And it's not just about size. They also host super niche events. Like IBTM World, it's all about meetings and events.
Wait, a trade show for people who organize trade shows?
Exactly. Meta, right.
That's pretty funny.
But it shows how committed Fira is to different sectors and to fostering innovation within those sectors.
Makes sense. Anything else that sets them apart?
They're big on social impact, working with NGOs, social enterprises,
Oh, interesting.
promoting ethical sourcing, sustainability within the industry itself.
So they're really putting their money where their mouth is. Okay, let's say I'm sold. Fira is the place for me. Any advice for a first-time exhibitor? What are the must-dos to make sure I don't mess it up?
First thing, research. Don't just pick a show randomly.
Okay, so do your homework.
Dive deep. Look at who's attending, who's exhibiting, the focus. Make sure it aligns with your audience, your goals.
No impulse decisions. This is a strategic move.
Exactly. And once you've picked your show, budget realistically.
Right, because it's not cheap.
Especially if you're coming from overseas, factor in everything. Booth costs, travel, accommodation, marketing, even translation.
So don't be afraid to spend, but spend smart.
Then comes the concept, but remember, tie it into Fira.
We talked about that, using the venue, the sustainability theme.
Right, and think about the local culture, language nuances.
Make it relevant to Barcelona.
Good, design your booth with all that in mind. Make it eye-catching, interactive, and functional.
You got to stand out from the crowd.
And pre-show marketing, get people excited beforehand.
Social media, email campaigns, maybe some local influencers.
Exactly, build that buzz.
And once you're at the show, be present, be engaged.
Staff your booth with knowledgeable people, passionate people.
People who can really represent your brand.
Encourage interaction, collect those leads, but also connect with people, on a human level.
It was not just about transactions, it's about relationships.
And don't forget the follow-up after the show. Analyze your data, refine your approach for next time.
So it's a learning process, you get better each time.
That's it. And Fira Barcelona is a great place to learn and grow.
This has been awesome. I've learned so much about Fira.
Me too. It's been fun exploring this with you.
But before we wrap up, any last words of wisdom for our listeners? Something crucial for success at Fira Barcelona?
Don't be afraid to be bold, be creative, think outside the box. Fira is all about innovation. It rewards those who push boundaries.
That's a great takeaway. So to all our listeners, embrace the challenge, make a splash, and maybe we'll see you at the next Fira event.
I'll be looking for your booth.
That's it for this episode of The Deep Dive. Thanks for listening.